So for today, we have media queries, what it is and how to use it. We have floating. This is an old way of positioning. We have some positioning like translate, etc. We will talk about normalizers, and we will talk a bit more about semantic tags. So we covered tags like just HTML tags, but we will talk about a bit about semantic, and we will talk about Flexbox. So let's start. Before we start, let's have some fun. I know you like fun. So we will have I've prepared a few questions from the previous lesson, and let's just I will go from top to bottom on my list, and I'll ask each question per person. Give me a second. So AJ, first question. How to select all P elements with direct div parent?
All P elements with direct div parent.
Yeah. So I'm going to my CSS and tell me how to write it.
Oh, P and what do you call those curly brackets?
But so you will select in all P's, but we want to have select P where the direct parent is div.
Right. So is it div P?
Almost. So we will selecting all P's.
Oh, dot P.
No.
Okay.
So you're close. You're missing one symbol here.
Okay, comma.
Not comma. Comma is just you listing. So you will select divs and P's. This is angle bracket.
Oh, that's like div and P. Okay. I see.
Direct parent.
Direct parent.
Yeah. Okay. So the next person is Dea. How to select P elements that are placed immediately after div. First sibling. So again, we have div and P, right? Select P elements that are placed immediately after div. Any ideas?
Is it plus?
Almost. Or maybe. No. Or yes. Dea? Let's check. Plus CSS. Yes, it is plus. Beautiful. Okay. Next person, Daniel. How to select element with two classes, list and list main. So the one element with two classes. Are you still alive there? Any ideas?
Well, for anyone?
So
with comma?
Sorry?
When you separate them with comma, like the first class, comma, next class, and open the...
So when you separate them with comma, lists.
Without second comma.
So if you separate it with comma, you just selecting two elements. One element list and another element list main. But you want to select one element that has both classes.
Dot list main?
Yes. That should be it, like this. So you concatenate without any spacing.
So
right?
that the dot list will pick up all those classes with the name.
So you basically saying that this I'm looking for the element that has lists and has list main.
Yeah, but those two are classes, or dot list is a class and dot list underscore main is an element.
No, both. It's not an element. If you use dot, that means that this is a this is a class.
This is the both are classes.
Yeah, both are classes. Yep. Okay. So hold on. You should know that. How to select element with class list item that is inside element with class list. Come on. I know this is a new format. I've never asked you questions before.
This is a scary format.
But you need to do your homework.
Yeah, that's correct.
Hold on. No. So how to select the, so I have an element and inside this element I have this element. How am I supposed to select this one? So we always go from top to bottom.
So is it dot list item dot list?
So dot list and
Something dot list dot, for example, dot list something dot list dot main, with a gap in between.
it's not main, it's item, right? It should be like this. So you have, you've showing that this is actually a child. This one is a child. So it's like a built-in pass.
Right.
So this is a parent, this is a child. Okay.
That's interesting.
Come on, we've talked about that last time. And that is why I'm sharing slides, so you can review that at home and just read, and that is why I'm sharing code examples, so you can go through them. Okay, so now Mushtaq, name 5 pseudo classes. So what is pseudo class first? Let's start from this point.
I haven't gone through the slides, but I can probably attempt and will probably fail.
Let's do that.
So the pseudo classes basically means they give you the clue or the context what the classes are about, like that are you going to create, correct?
Not really. So pseudo classes, they represent state of the element. Remember we discussed about that. The state. So when you roll over your mouse on something, or when you click and hold, or when you do something else with your elements.
Like you hover an element and gives you what it's going to do.
Yeah, so one of pseudo classes is hover.
I see.
Again, I provided the list of them.
Yeah, sorry, as I said, I haven't gone through the revision.
Yeah.
Is visited one still?
Yep.
Visited?
Yes.
Like when you visited it and then it goes grayed out?
Yep. So we have visited, we have hover. Anything else? 3 more. Active, good.
Disabled.
Sorry? Disabled, yep.
Enable.
Sorry?
I thought if there's a disable also pseudo, then it should be enable as well.
No, enable. No. So by default it is enabled. So the disabled is just a pseudo class.
I see.
Last child. Or
Yes. No? Yes. Yes.
in element.
Wait a
Actually.
second. Now I'm confused. No, it is pseudo class. Yeah, pseudo class. Last child. Good. Thank you. Now Theodora. Pseudo elements. 3 pseudo elements.
I'm confused because I think pseudo elements is the one we gave a name and we add 2 more. Not sure.
So remember I said that you can fake elements with CSS.
Yeah.
Not create with HTML, but fake it. And each element can have before pseudo element, after pseudo element, and we have, for example, placeholder. This is also a pseudo element.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's start from the beginning. AJ.
Sorry, actually, just actually on the so before and after are like pseudo elements, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So just quickly on that, in that case, so for example, if I have a label tag, so and in between that I have text, and I have before and after,
Yeah.
and I have the tag before and after elements. So technically, is it still within the label, but it's just above and below the text, for example?
Yeah. So yes, and natively it is above and below, but you can position them whatever you want and set
Okay.
stylings. But yeah, by default, if you set before and after, that will be on the before and after, so on top and bottom.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Got you.
Okay, so 5 responsive units. Easy one.
Percentage.
Oh,
Percentages.
Yeah. Nice one.
Okay, 1.
Rem.
Centimeter.
Rem.
M.
M.
Vmin.
V.
VH.
Yeah, VH. Women. Yeah. Okay, 5. Great. Woohoo! Smashed it. And the last one for Dea. How to select the third P tag, which is easy. So you have like 5 P tags, and to select one, the third one. Remember, we just mentioned something like first child, right? How to select the third one?
You do nth child and put number in the.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. See, that was easy, not that scary. Beautiful. So we will practice such things for our future lessons. I think it's useful to be stressed. Okay, let's talk about media queries. So media queries is basically some rules that you can apply, some rules and like scope where you can put specific CSS to style for specific devices or screen sizes. So here we have this is official definition. Rule is used in media queries to apply different styles to different media types and devices. So media types means, is it a print, for example, or is it a screen reader, or is it a display? Yep. So conditions. We have, for the conditions, we have width, height of the viewport. So that means that of the viewport that you see your page, of the browser window, let's say. Media type, which can be screen, can be print, can be reader, I think, if I'm not wrong, because I've never used reader before. So yeah, I think that the third one is reader for screen readers. And orientation, so you can set tablet, for tablets, you can set like a landscape or portrait. and you can be more like specific and set some specific stylings. And resolution, where you just set how many DPIs you will have. But again, you normally use this. Resolution, I'm never seeing this one in production. And you can concat them. For example, you can set that orientation, width and orientation. And let me show an examples. So here I have some stylings. And to create a media query, all you're doing is just put at media and then the specification. And you can have something like, again, if you use VS Code, you might have something at media screen and something, and basically your widths, like min widths. So here we have some other example. So all means that all devices, and you can write it like in a short syntax. So min widths. So what it means that I want to set specific stylings if my screen size, the viewport, the browser window is bigger than 764 pixels. So at least I'm looking for 764. And let's actually show you. So based on min widths image, if I make it smaller, you can see that I have my kitten and it is smaller image. And if I increase and we get to 7, you can see the numbers on the screen. So we will get to 7, 6, 8. Yeah. As you can see, I'm increasing the font size and the image size. So this is how you create in responsive design with media queries, right? So this is min widths. You can also create another step. So you have step for 764. So that means that you cover in tablets basically, and another step for big screens. So I want to make it even bigger, and font size also should grow. So now if I refresh and go up, and on some point my image grow again, right? 23, and it is, so starting from 24 it grows. Now I have a responsive image, right? Beautiful kitten. So we call this approach min widths is the mobile first, because your default stylings will cover mobile devices, and you write specific stylings for something bigger. So this is mobile first. It depends like what kind of platform you are building, what kind of website and what kind of users you have, because some products, they might have like, based on the statistic that you'll have like from Google Analytics or something, you'll see that 90% of your users comes from mobile devices. So your styling should be by default mobile first. So you saw your default without media queries, you'll write just for sizes for mobile devices, and enhance it with min widths for bigger devices. And the opposite way is that you have creating for the big screen, by default stylings will be applicable for big screens, and then you will go down. So you say that, okay, I want to have specific size, maximum that should be 1024, and the same, another step, maximum widths should be 768, and then you want to apply this. So everything below will have these stylings. So if I refresh, and you can see that it also grow. And behavior is the same. It's just about the order. Sorry, just jumping So you might lose our kitten.
Vasily, is it like automated system, automated code, HTML code, which detects the viewport size and resizes the context accordingly, rather than we describing it?
No, you need to define, because you set in rules. Your computer is done without your code. It's just a piece of, I don't know, some PCB boards and metal.
Okay.
So you need to provide instructions to your browser that, okay, for this width, I want to have this. For that one, I want to have another. But again, partially, you will cover like this, what you just asked, that is it smart enough to resize it? If you use percentage, right, that will be resized. So when you create set the width 80%, when you're resizing, it will be it will shrink or expand your image.
Okay, thank you.
But this is for width. But what about colors? What about font sizes and like many other things? You still need to set all of that. So this is how you normally create responsive design. You write in media queries. Okay. We also have min height. So based on window height, you can specify some stylings. So this is more for portrait-oriented content, but I've never seen it in production. Probably some specific platforms use it, so potentially you'll see that. But that means that if I start resizing the height, I will change so this one, min height. You see that because I'm changing the height, it is jumping. So it's based on the height. So it doesn't care about the width. It cares about the height of your window. Sorry, my kitten. Where's my kitten? This one. Yep. And the same for max height. So similar behavior, but for you set in for the max height. So if you design in something for the mobile phones, that will be useful for you. So small. Great. So let's go further. So we have, speech. Not reader, but speech. So we have all, this is all. We have print for printers, screen for any device with a screen, and we have speech, which is for readers, the screen readers, I mean. And here we have examples of syntax. So you can have like screen and this. You can set print and style because normally if you working for like some, I don't know, newspaper and they have a website and or blog or something like that, you creating articles and you want to have specific stylings for that. You want to have like for print, so you have a nice article, you have a lot of advertisement around it, some links to another sections with some cards, etc. But if I click Command P, I want to print it and style it in a correct way, and just I want to print just an article without any other elements. So you might have, with your print media query, you can remove a lot of stylings or like display none to hide all of these elements, redundant elements for print, and change like font size, images, etc. So yeah, the most popular media features is min width, max width, and orientation, which is landscape or portrait. Min width, as this is what I just said, when you build mobile first, and max width when you build desktop first. There is no difference as a result, the result will be the same. There is no difference, but it's just about the approach. how you want to render it. And especially if you write your media queries in a separate file, you don't need to load this file, because if you open that, for example, on a mobile phone, because you don't need for the big screen, so you slightly saving the traffic, just a bit. Okay, the last thing from a second. Yeah, so I have a few examples about resolution. So print, this is actually a useful one. I want to show you the example. So for print, I want to make my image 100% width and the figure, which is image container, 12 centimeters, because I'm operating with print. So now if I click Command P, not there, here, just loading, you can see that this one has the width and the height, and I style it a bit different, in a different way, not just like these images. Yep. Okay, so landscape means you'll do this. So let me go, and we have landscape. Yeah, so imagine this is because by default I'm in a landscape mode, right? If I rotate my screen to portrait, now I have a different size of this image, right? So it's more of the height rather than width. And if I switch it back, I'm having it in a width, like the wider image. So we are doing this with landscape, and we can have something specific for portrait, but this is just values. It doesn't matter. And the resolution, this is what I said, I've never seen that in production, but you're defining how many dots per inch, which basically pixels, you have. And I think that you can imitate it here. Let me just, oh, I think I need to activate it. Reset, capture, screenshot, device pixel ratio. Yeah. I'm not sure that we can imitate it. Nah, probably not. I can't do that here because I have like 4K. But the idea is that you can specify the like dots per inch DPI of your screen. Yeah, pretty simple. Do you have any questions about media queries? No? Yes?
Has there ever been an instance where you had to, like, I don't know how the speech reader would work? Is that,
yeah,
do we do that with like alts and things of that nature, or?
Again, for as you said, as I already mentioned, that these readers, screen readers, you don't need to have stylings for screen readers, right? So you can remove all stylings from your page when you go to screen reader mode to load the page faster, because you don't need to load all these stylings and move elements, etc. So you can render just a plain text, and you can remove all these, like again, ads, other sections, etc.
All right. Cheers, Vasil.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Next up is floating. This is very, like, you need to know about that. You need to, I will show you one trick that you need to know, but you will probably not use it in the future, because we have, see, it was very popular before Flexbox and CSS grids, but now it's like there is no reason to use it. But you still will work on some platforms where you will support some legacy code, and maybe you will support the Internet Explorer, some older versions like Internet Explorer 9 or 10. Some companies have it, but so you'll use float, but you still need to just understand how it works. So float basically allows you to move your elements from left to right And so we have like, yeah, we have four like properties: left, right, none, which is you basically do nothing, and inherit, so inherit from the parent. And here we have an example. So we have our image, our kitten. This is the default position. And I want to set here, I want to float right. So I want to move my image from here to here. Again, with Flexbox and CSS Grid, it's just easy, but imagine that we live in the world without it. So if I refresh my page, it is here. And now, this is a trick I was talking about. Now you see that we basically, our text jumped to the top and we lost the height of the parent, right? And this is a problem. So now how am I supposed to fix it? How am I supposed to move my element, my text below the kitten? And as you can see, if I hover on my figure, it actually has height 0. It has some margin, 14 pixels top and bottom. But yeah, it just broken. So to fix it, it's very, very easy. You can, for this one, you can use clear both. So you need, you're like clearing everything from both sides. So for the following element, you set in clear both. But there is still a problem because you lost your height for the figure. So this is not actually a solution. It's like a almost a solution, but not actual solution. And when I started as a developer a few years ago, that was really funny because half of their platform, of my company's platform, was about, let me just show you, float. They had something like BRs, which is breakpoints. And this is funny because they basically created a block element just to, so this is what we had, right? And if I uncomment my BR, save, now I'm moved a bit, and what they had is something like, which was really mad. And in their case, you can add a few more, but that was crazy. So this is not a solution. What you actually want to do is for the element, so we have the container for our image, and we just moved our image to right. So for the parent of the element that we moved with float, I want to set overflow auto. And now we got back our height of our figure, and our image is on the right. Yeah. So you're not breaking the layout, and your text stays on the same position. Beautiful. The same we can have with left, but by default it is left. So there is no point to use left in our case. But if you have two images, let me just add another image. Do you have any other kitten? We have a cat. Yeah, we have a cat. So imagine that we have the first child, so we probably need height for both. Figure image. Figure. And here we want to, for the first child, we want to float. We don't want to float. Let's let last child. So my second kitten should go first. So I want to move it with CSS, and I can set to float left. So last child, float left. And now this kitten comes first. This cat, right? But again, you don't do that in like for recent browsers, and like if you have working on a good project, you will never do that because you don't need to do float because you have Flex and you have CSS, great. And we will get to that, how to do that with Flex and how to easily position everything with Flex. So this is floating. Great. Let me just remove my cat here. Yeah, this is what I just showed you, the example that you're losing the height, and with overflow auto you'll fix it. So we have a few elements like clear, I showed it to you, and overflow is much better. So positioning, this is a tricky part. Trust me, you'll struggle with it many times, even when you will work as a developers. So positioning that can be static, which is a default positioning. So every single element by default is static. We have relative, which will be relative from the default position. So if your element stays on some position and you did change position to relative and then set left 20 pixels, it will move 20 pixels left from initial position. I'll show you an example in a second. We have fixed. That means that you're fixing the element to the viewport. So you know these buttons, or like on our website, we have this section, right? So even if I'm scrolling, it always stays there. This is a fixed element. The property is fixed. And we have absolute. So this one, so you positioning the element absolutely to the closest non-static parent. This is like listen very carefully. Absolute, you positioning the element absolutely to the closest non-static parent, and by default all of them are static. So if you want to use absolute, you need to set relative to the parent, and I'll show you the example in a second. And we have sticky. Sticky is basically you have just a normal element on the page, but when you start scrolling, it will stick on some position if you define it. So let's go to examples. So this is just crazy with all these positions. So this is the default. Like I have a div with padding, I have a nested div with padding, I have another nested div. So here you can see my one container, then another container, and here a container, one more, and I have my text, right? So I want to position my text absolutely, let's say. So let's start from position relative. Text. So if I do position relative and left 50 pixels, from here it will move left to the right for 50 pixels. So if I refresh, I'm moving to the right from the initial position. And I can set like probably top 20 pixels, save, refresh, and now I'm moving down, right? Great. But what about absolute? This one that I was talking about. So let me uncomment it. This is the most tricky one. So if I refresh, I can see my text. And I have stylings for it, top 20 pixels and left 50 pixels. So where it is? Any ideas?
Behind the elements.
Sorry?
Behind the element.
Which one?
The
box?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So remember what I've just said, that if you use absolute, it will be positioned absolutely to the closest non-static parent. And we're not setting any position to this one, so by default it is static. So it's not positioned into this one. It's not positioned into this one because again we're not setting position any other position, so by default it's static. Same for this one, same for this one, and the next parent is body, and not even body but HTML. So now it got to the very top and basically stick with this one. So now my 20 and 50, you can see that I have slightly blue box on the top left corner. This element is there. So how to fix it? You'll have these troubles because when you start working with images and specific shapes, so you have like a card and you want to put your image inside, and you need to position your image. I will show you an example, our example for like your homework, right? So give me a second. You'll have questions like how I supposed to position this image. If its image is bigger, or this image is landscape oriented, or anything else with this image wrong than your shape, and it is different rather than your shape for this like of your container. So you need to position that absolutely and center it and cut everything that comes outside. I'll show you an example in a second. We will create it. So to position that absolutely, let's start with top one. If I set position relative, because relative is the one that basically people use for elements that have position absolute. So if you have absolute, we use relative because it doesn't change anything. So when I change from default, which is static, to relative, now it's positioned absolutely to my top one. If I set middle to middle position relative, so now the closest parent with non-static is middle, so now I'm positioned it to this one, to the yellow one. And if I put to the bottom position relative, now I'm positioning it to the green one. Does it make sense?
So just one more time, really quickly, do the boxes
Yeah.
example again. Yeah.
Okay, so let's remove, and remove. So by default, all elements are static. So if I set absolute to this one, I'm checking, is it non-static? No. Is it non-static? No. Non-static? No. Non-static? No. And got to our HTML. So now my box is on the left top corner. Then I want to actually, ideally, I want to position my text, let's say start from our top. So if I set position, change from default, which is static, to relative, now I'm positioning. It's kind of confusing because the padding is the same. So let me just top, I don't know, 5 pixels. Yeah, let's say like this. And left, probably also 5 pixels. Yeah. So now I'm positioned absolutely to the top because this is the closest non-static, right? So this is static because we are not defining anything. This one is static. And this one is non-static because I set position relative. So if I change, I set position relative to this one, I can remove from this one, from the top, because now we have this, the closest non-static is middle. And the same for bottom. If I set here, we are now positioning to the bottom, but middle I can remove from here because I don't need it. So basically, if you have the text or image that you want to position absolutely, for the direct parent, you're just setting position relative.
Yeah, I think the removing the padding made it easier visually for me to see
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Okay. So let me actually show you an example with image. So we have a square, right? And I want to use image inside. Let me put an image positioning, because this is a tricky part. So I'm commenting out my text and putting image. Beautiful. This is what we want, right? So I want to fit my image into my square. And it looks like, because we have a square and my image is portrait oriented, I want to set that max width of the image should be 100%. So inherit from the parent, right? Because it's much more taller than wider. So if I go here and I have my image, I will change to, oh yeah, right. Let's keep it like this. I will just create a new selector. So positioning image, position, absolute, right? And if I set top 0, left 0, now my image starts from the very top corner. If I remove my navigation, you'll see that the image is there. And this is because none of these has the position relative. So let me go to my bottom and set position relative. Okay, so we are starting from the correct position, which is great. So next step for my image is to set width to 100%. So I will set width 100%. 100%. Now I'm fitting my image inside, but it's still going outside my container. So does anyone know how to hide it? How to cut it by edges?
Could you do overflow Y hidden?
Just
Because it's
overflow
on the
hidden. We can
overflow,
cut
okay,
on
cool.
all sides, not just Y.
Alright, cool.
Yes. So now, sorry, wrong element. So on our bottom, right? Not this one, overflow hidden. So our container, everything that gets outside this bottom container will be hidden. So now we fit in our image, but normally your image kind of, you want to see the center of the image. And this is another trick. How to see the image. Let me actually change the image to probably not kitten, but cat. This one is portrait oriented. So I want to set not width 100%, but height 100%. Yeah, so it's not very centered, right? And I want to see the center of this image. So there is a trick, again, big one. For old browsers, I will show you like two ways of doing that. For old browsers and for new browsers. So for old browsers, we have, we want to change top to 50% and left 50%. So we are shifting our image to the, so it starts from the very, very center of the container, right? Top 50%, left 50%. And now where the magic comes. So here we use transform property and put translate, so we will move our element. Now we are talking about image back to minus 50% and minus 50%. And these numbers from the mass point makes no sense. So it, for me, on the first look, you'll think that, so we shifted top and left, and now we're moving on x coordinate minus 50, so moving back from left to 0, because 50 minus 50 is 0. And same for the y, which is from top, so you move into top to 50%. But they use the different base, and I'll show you that in a second. So now if I refresh my page, I actually see the center of the image. And if I change my, so if I hover, you can see that the image looks like that. So if I remove my overflow, my image like this. And we just see the center of that image. So the problem is here, you need to memorize it. This one, this 50% and this 50%, they comes from the parent width and the parent height, from this one, from the container. But these two comes from the element, your image width and image height. That is why this 50% is different from this one. This one. This one. Does it make sense? Is it silence is yes or no? Yes? No? Anyone? Please. Should I repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. So let me just comment out this one. So when you set top and left, these two numbers comes from the parent size. So left 50% means that it takes the 100% of the parent and move 50% to the right. And the same from top. You've offsetting 50% of the height of this container. But this in transform minus 50, this is x coordinate. So you take the 50% of the image. Let me just click like this. So 50% of the image, and you've taken back because on x coordinate, but 50% of the image width, not of the container width as it was here, but from the image width. And the same for the minus 50 y coordinate. So image, let me show you. So we took 50% of the image and put it back on the same amount of pixels. And here, this one is 50% of the image height. Now we fit in it. I hope that you will watch our video after the lesson a few more times. Okay, so
you can do the same thing with tags and headers, right? Like you know the CSS3 and HTML5 images in the homework. You can do the same thing with the cool.
Yeah, you're basically doing this position absolute and top left, and you're just operating with the element. It doesn't matter what kind of element you have.
Cool.
So this is the way that will be supported by many old browsers. And now we have a fancy way without all this crazy mess. So what with new way, all we have, so we have an image. It is big. And what we have, we just setting height 100%, width 100%, refresh the page, and as you can see it's squeezed, right? So this is a problem and we want to fix it. And the new way of doing that is just object fit cover, save. And now the modern browsers are smart enough to understand what you want. and you have the same result. And if you go to, remember this website can I use, and look for object fit, good old friend which we call Internet Explorer doesn't support it. That is why if you support Internet Explorer, you can't use object fit. You need to use this transform translate. But if you don't care about Internet Explorer, you can use object fit, which is much nicer, just nicer. You can set, I don't know, 50% and 50%. And it still do its job, right? Much, much better. Okay, let me just leave it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the next step, so we talk about static, we talk about relative, fixed. Yeah, I forgot about fixed. So we have a fixed here, sorry. Yeah, we probably want to talk about fixed. Give me a second. So we have our image. What about positioning here? So let's set, oh yeah, right. Let's actually comment it out my image and comment it out my kitten because I have prepared examples with text. So refresh. So we have our text by default. And now I can set position fixed 20 pixels and 50 pixels. Probably I need to use more pixels because, like, let's say top 200 pixels and left 50 pixels is fine. So now this image, this text is positioned absolutely, but fixed to the browser view, to the browser screen. So if I scroll, you see that I'm scrolling, but this element stays on the same position. It's useful when you have like a chatbot or icon or something like that, or like a pop-up or like many things. But you just use position fixed and this is it. And it sticks on the right position. And the sticky is very, very useful one. Because sometimes it is tricky. Remember that some websites, if you start scrolling, they have like a scroll position that when you have a navigation bar and when you start scrolling, it will stick or some like floating navigation bar. When you start scrolling, it will stick on one position. And this is what we try to do here. So when I start scrolling, I want to fix, so basically switching between position relative to position fixed. So when I reach, when the element will reach top 20 pixels, it will change to position fixed. And what it means that if I scroll, right, give a second, refresh. Come on, what's going on? So, do they put to the right element? Position sticky, top 20. Do I have relative? Yes, that is why. Because it's just moving with the element. So if I don't have a relative on my parent, so now it's basically based on the container, the full width on HTML element. So if I start scrolling, that should stay there. Come on. Sorry. Why is not stopping there? Come on. What's going on? What I'm missing? Set index, position sticky, top 20 pixels. Hold on. Pum, 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 pum. magic. Just magic. Okay. I don't know. 150 pixels. That's suspicious. Position relative. This is crazy. Give me a sec. Sticky CSS. This is just odd. Any idea what's going on? So they have just position sticky. This is what I have. And when you scroll, see it sticks in the position top. If I change it to 20 pixels, this is what we have. Sorry. Run it. And we have 20 pixels. This is exactly what we have. Position sticky. So what's going on? Okay, WebKit. Is it just a stupid? So WebKit is a browser prefix, which is Chrome one. I'm wondering, is it just a Chrome? Dodgy Chrome. Let me just close this. Refresh. Nah, it just doesn't like me. Yeah, so what's going on? Overflow hidden. Let me try to remove this. Position. Yes, okay, so it because of overflow. Yeah, so we have like 20 pixels, right? And if we have, if we start scrolling, it will get to 20 pixels from the top, stick, and now I can scroll. And when I reach back, it will start moving down. So if you have like a floating menu here, you can start scrolling and that will stick on the right position. And when you start scrolling down, up, it will unstick and scroll with all the content. So that is very helpful. Again, I think that sticky is not supported with IE. Sticky. Yes. As usual, right? Nothing new. Yeah, so many browsers have some limitations. Firefox is good. Safari is good. Even like iOS is good, but for this one, it's just for tables, which you will never use, so you're probably safe. Yeah, you're safe. But again, your good old friend is a problem. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we talk about absolute and sticky. So normalizers. This is a good part. So normalizers is basically a bunch of CSS that somebody wrote for you to generalize all CSS, default CSS in every single browser. What do I mean? So here, if I remove all my stylings, can I remove? Yeah, let's just remove all my stylings. Refresh. And I have some default stylings, right? Oh, I probably use Normalizer. Yeah, I do. So I have some default stylings. So my body has some padding, right? By default. And we have some default font size, which is in our case 16 pixels, because this is Chrome. So let me open the same file in Safari. Beautiful, very helpful. Can I open? Okay, give me a second. Safari is a funny one. Pum, 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 pum. Positioning, open with Safari. Great. So if I start I can't expect. Yeah, Safari. I need to go with Safari. You need to go to Preferences, Advanced, I think, and show Develop menu in menu bar. So now I can have Inspect Element. And here you have, again, you have some stylings. I don't have many browsers, but you have some similar to Chrome stylings. But for example, if you go to Internet Explorer, you will see that default margin and default font size and many other things are slightly different. You might have 0 margin, for example, or bigger margin, and smaller text or bigger text by default. And this is a problem because every time, so imagine that you forgot about Normalizer and you go you created your website and you are happy. It looks perfect on your browser, in your Chrome, and you start playing with it, and you got to the point that you opening your website on Internet Explorer or Mozilla or anything else, and it just looks different. It's not completely broken, but everything looks different. You have bigger gaps, you have bigger or smaller text, etc. And this is a problem. And that is why it was very annoying for everyone. That is why somebody just spent their time as a team and created this normalize file. So this is just a bunch of CSS. It's literally just a CSS. So what it does, it just resets default stylings for every single browser. And now, because I'm including, so look at again, let me just delete from here, save, refresh. So look at this. So we have margin, and the margin is 8 pixels around, and the font size, we found that it is 16 pixels, right? But if I put my normalizer file, so I just download it and add it to my project. If I refresh, now I don't have any stupid margin for my body, and the font size is still 16 pixels. Yeah, so great. But now if I open this page in any browser, that will look the same. So from today, every single project that you will use needs to have this normalize CSS. Again, this is just a regular CSS that somebody wrote, nothing smart. Okay, sorry. Yes. We have another funny game. You'll like it. If you're bored, you can open this game and play how can you basically you'll practice your design skills and how are you feeling design in a right way. So you'll get like 2 images and they will ask you like which one is correct, like appropriate, let's say, not correct but appropriate. And this one is pretty obvious, it's like a first level, and you just compare. Yeah, so you can compare the difference. Next. So this one, any ideas, left or right? Anyone?
Right.
Right, okay. Yoo-hoo! Yes, so as you can see, the spacing was wrong, the font size, yeah. This one.
Left.
Okay, yoo-hoo! Yes. So the width, right, was the wrong one. Here.
Left.
Left. Right? Left or right, sorry?
Right.
So we have a few thoughts, right? Please, arguments. Why right?
Just because the video icon is brighter. I don't know. And,
Okay.
and the microphone icon.
So for me, because they need to be, icons need to be consistent. If it has a like full fill in background. So let's try the right one. Yes, we are correct. So the weight is different. Great, we just passed training. This one. And like, what the fuck? They are identical, right?
The right one.
Yeah, right one. Because the space, the camel case, not the camel case, but just uppercase. This one, that should be easy.
Why?
Right.
Left one.
Why?
Left have you can see which object is selling. On the right, maybe it's a bit more bigger.
Okay. Let's go with left one. No, because the image doesn't take the full. This is what we were talking with kitten. Image doesn't take the full width, and it looks like it's just broken. It's not fitting.
I see.
This one, this is obvious. Again, kitten example.
What?
Yeah, left one.
Left one. Yeah. This one.
Left.
You got the point. We have a lot of levels here. Please play and share your results in Slack. I'm wondering how much you will get, how many points you will get. Great. Let's move further. So we have semantic tags. So that means nothing else than the same tags but with meaning. And what we are talking about, remember that we have div, which is just a container, just a wrapper for every single, that when you need to group some elements, you use div. But you can be more semantic, and you can use header, nav, section, article, aside, and footer. They have absolutely the same attributes and characteristics as div, but they are also semantic. And that means that if Google search and Google engines will open your website because they want to rank your website, how accurate it is, how accessible it is, etc., and put you on the first page of the results of search results or second page, or so let's be honest, first page or nowhere, because you almost never go to the second page. And so they will rank your website, and based how semantic it is, how accessible it is, they will give you a higher score. And that is why if you use just divs, it will treat your website as very poor quality, and this is bad for your SEO scores. That is why you use headers, navs. So if you create a navigation, don't use div, use nav. If you create in some section which is like a grouped content by, let's say, similar topic, or you have a few articles and on the page, and you create in the section for one article, you create section, and inside there you will create some article, etc. Aside, that means that the content inside a site is not very important, and that might be ads or links to another pages, etc. So again, when Google search will look through your page, their engines, they will treat aside, okay, this is not important, so this page is not about the stuff that you have inside a site element. It's about article. And here in article, I'm looking for keywords, and we are matching, and that is why I'll rank your website better and give you a higher score. Same for footer, etc. So this is just the same divs, but with meanings. We have details, fig caption, which is like a caption for your images. Figure is an image. We have main, mark, and summary. So mark, you basically marking your text. Let me show you an example. So we are here. So let me refresh. Come on. So we have this text, and if I put mark tag, so that means that I want to highlight this word. And if I refresh, I'm highlighting this word, right? Without CSS. So if I remove my CSS, I still be able to highlight my word. This is mark. Great. So the next, so here I put some details about each. You can read about them, and we have examples. We have examples somewhere. Lesson example text. We might have some examples. I need to check that. Maybe not here. I'll check this link. Again, more details. And next one is, this is a comparison of HTML4 and HTML5, let's say. So if you want to emphasize like italic text with HTML4, you used I, and that, so visually it changed, it can change your text, but it doesn't have any meaning. And that is why you, if you want to make this to emphasize your text, you use EM now. With HTML5, you use EM, so both text will work visually. But for browsers, for search engines, this one will work semantically. Same with bold text. So you can make your text bold with just CSS. You can use B and make it bold. But if you want to make it bold and give a meaning, this is very important text, piece of text, you use strong. Same for button. Never create anchor and style it as a button, like add borders, create shadows, etc. Don't do that. Use button if it is a button, and if you use this element for internal navigation inside your website, inside your page, or interacting with some elements, like you want to click on the menu and menu should open, don't use anchors, use buttons. Same with form, don't use divs. And to be honest, this is funny part, because I was interviewing one mid developer with 3 years of or 4 years of experience, and I gave him a test, and he submitted with a form, and he wrapped his form into the div, so his input was inside the div, which is completely wrong. You have a form, and with form you have like a submit attribute, like you have action, and you can do something with it. You can handle the action. So yeah, just use form if you have inputs. Label for each input. Again, this is more for accessibility. For search engines, they will treat your website much better if you use labels for your inputs. And field set is, again, this is pretty much the same as div, but remember on the previous lesson I showed you inputs, and they had like a border, they were grouped, and they had like a gray border. So this is because of field set. So you're grouping similar question, like if you have a form, you might have like a personal data where you have HTML, first name, last name, and email. Then you have like a, I don't know, group some, for example, experience, and there you will have like a some what type of job you were working on, how many other employers you had, etc. So stuff like that. So you just group in by category. Great. So we have a tab index, And tab index is basically that you can navigate with tab between elements. And you can add tab index to any element. Again, I've never seen it in a production, but what it means that if I here, so I have my p tag, right? And I'm going here, I'm refreshing my page. If I hit tab, I navigate to my anchor, then to the next one, then to the next one. And when I click next, I'm jumping out and going to my URL and click again. I'm jumping somewhere else and here and there. And I'm navigating through my panel a few more times, many times, and I go back to my anchors, right? So I'm ignoring my p tag. But if I want to emphasize it, for example, again for screen readers, if you have like a banking app and you have a lot of elements and you want to like make your website more accessible. So the person who will land, and this person is blind, and this person will use like a screen reader and hit tab for the first time, it will jump straight into the input area, for example, so or to any specific element. So you can use tab index and like 1, right? So that means that if I refresh my page and hit my tab, I'm focusing on this P. You can see that I have P focused. And I can use any numbers and switch, so I can have like tab index here, tab index equals, for example, 3. For this one I want to have 2, and for this one I want to have 4. So I will jump from my p tag to the last element in my to the positioning basically, then I will jump to media queries, then I will jump to float. So let's test it. P, positioning, media query, float. So you can specify, again, this is an accessibility thing, and you can specify all this stuff. I've never worked on such for such companies that used this stuff, but I know that some companies, this is their main requirement, and accessibility is a big thing for them as a selling point. Okay, so let's move to the Flexbox, to the fun part of this lesson. So Flexbox, basically, it allows you to make your layout and create your responsive layouts much easier than you will do that with just regular HTML and CSS, basically with CSS. Let me just open Flexbox Examples, and I have it, all of them I have here. I need to open, so HTML examples flex. Ooh. Give a second. Index and examples -flex. Great. So I have here on my first section, I have 3 divs, right? They are block elements. And let me actually just section. Oh, this is container. Okay. Yeah. So by default, I have 3 block elements, right? 1, 2, 3. So each takes the new row because they are block. So div is a block element. But with Flexbox, by default, you put in all your elements into the row. So if I set to the parent display flex, now I have them in a row. Very easy. And I can change it. I can set, okay, I don't want to have a row. I can set direction. I've added a class direction. Flex direction, column. So this is what I'm doing here. Flex direction, column. Very easy. not very helpful probably for you think for now, but this is just a very first step. So when you start creating your layout, you're doing like for the specific container, you're doing flex display flex, and this is the starting point. We have a flex wrap. So what it means that I've specified that each element should has width 200 pixels, right? And if I hover on the element, you can see that I have only almost 130 pixels. And this is because the parent has display flex. And by default, it tries to fit everything in a row. Everything, if I add more elements, it will just shrink my elements inside and try to fit everything in one row. That is why for this wrapper, I've added another class wrap, and I want to set to wrap. So let me just remove my just edit element. So I have 1 to 9, right? And I can set to the parent. So we have display flex, and I'm setting wrap. So I'm allowing to move element if it doesn't fit to the next line. And now I have my I have 2 lines. And if I add more elements, it will create 3rd line, 4th line, etc. But flex is smart enough so we can have flex wrap reverse. So we have 1 to 9, but if I click this, now I have 9, and it goes in opposite order. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it starts moving to the left and starts from this side. And we can fix it by adding some other properties, which I'll show you in a second. So we have flex flow, which is a combination of flex direction and flex wrap. So all you do is just you're writing in one row, flex flow, column, wrap, which you probably never do. I've never done that before. I normally, if like a default float is that I'm writing display flex, flex direction, if I need a column. If not, I'm just like besides the flex display flex, I'm writing something like flex wrap, and then I start styling. And here I have like column wrap. Okay, this one is the most useful part of the of flex. So imagine that you've created a navigation main, and you want to put your elements positioned somehow, not just to the left, right? So by default, again, if I remove flex, you create a list of elements, like you have a UL and you have allies inside. This is your navigation, like home, I don't know, store, contacts, about, etc. So you set display flex. Now you have them in one row. But now, by default, you have flex start. We can also have flex end, and all of them goes to the end. So now you can align your elements to the right side. We can put display justify content center, and now they are in the middle. We can go wild and add set display content space between, and now they just spread the free space between them equally. And then we can go space around, which is kind of, so they have equal space between them, plus the rest of the space they will split equally to left and right. And we have space evenly, which basically equal space, equal gap between on each side. So here we have the same gap. You can think that here it is slightly bigger, and this is because we have some padding here. So if I remove my padding, you will see that the gap is equal on all sides. So this is very helpful. And this one is the most popular property for Flexbox. This is justify content. The next part is also very useful, is align items. This is the same as justify content, but in vertical direction. So by default, you have stretch. So align item stretch is a default. So it takes the full width, height of the parent. But you can set flex start, and that will shrink. It will be based on the content size inside each element. And here I define the height for the hello. So you can see that I have margin top and bottom. That is why it's taller. And I did it intentionally because I want to show you a few more examples with align. So you can have flex end and align everything in the bottom. You can do align item center and put everything into one row in the middle, and the baseline, so which will be on the beginning but based on the tallest element and will be aligned by the middle of this tallest element. So align items. So we have align content, which is aligning content inside the elements. So again, by default, we have stretch. This is a default value, so if I tick and tick, it does nothing. We have flex start. We have flex content, flex end. Sorry, align content, flex end. You're moving the whole element. Then you have, it doesn't take anything, it doesn't do anything with your elements inside. It just moves your elements. So center, again, space between and space around, right? So imagine, I will show you, yeah, this is order. Let me show you an example. So imagine that we have this one, justify. So I want to set to the center. So I'm putting this to the center and align items to the center, right? And now I positioned it in the middle. Or maybe I want to set align item center, but justify content space evenly, or space between, right? And how easy is positioning with the Flexbox? Is it like literally like 2 lines of code, 3 lines? So display flex, justify content, space between, align items, center. This is it, 3 lines. You don't need to think, because I saw how many students were struggling with this. Oh my gosh, I want to move this element to the left, and this one is breaking because of that, and what am I supposed to do? And Flexbox giving you ability to create that very, very easily. Okay, so order. Or to be honest, I've never used the order. I've never needed it, but you can specify order for each element. So by default, let me just untick all orders. 1, 2. We have order 1. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I set the order for some element, it will avoid every single element and move them to the very beginning that don't have orders. So move all these elements and start counting basically. So if I put this one even to 1, it starts from here, right? If I start setting order to like order 3, it still goes after, but because we have 1 and 3, so we can have something between. So the 2 is available. So let's add order 2 for my 3. Now you can see that it sits within it, within these 2, and you can add one more order to, I don't know, 4. Yeah, something like that. So you can set order to each element if you want to be very specific. Okay. Flex grow. Okay, so flex grow is basically that you can set to specific element to take the spare space. What means that in width, for width, we have a lot of spare space here, right? But for example, I want to, these 4 should be small, but this one should take the rest of the free space. So all I'm doing is just setting flex grow 1, and now it takes the full the rest of the space. And I can think that I actually don't want to do that just for one element. I really care about first and the second. So spread the free space equally between these two and use the default width for the next 3. So I'm doing flex grow and also 1. Oh, sorry, not this one. Flex grow 1. So now these two are equal, right? I can set flex grow 2, so this one will be twice as big as this one. And for this one, for example, I will set flex grow 1, and these two, 1 and 3, are equal, but 2 is bigger, and it tries to fit everything in one row again, and spread kind of to the right numbers, the free space. And 4 is now 4 times as 1 and 3, and fifth is 5 times as 1 should be, approximately. And the same with shrink. This is just in opposite direction. So if you move to shrink, here we have our shrink 2. That means that I'm dividing basically. So if I put 0.5, it basically grow, right? 2. But if I put just 2, it will shrink my element. And this one is grow, so you can see that will grow and will have twice, it will be twice as big as our 1. And the same numbers, so you can play with these numbers and shrink. Again, in real life, you'll use just align items, justify content, flex direction, and this is it. This is it. So flex is combination of flex grow, flex shrink, and basis. I don't actually remember what is basis because in real life I've never used it. I think that you can define, you can define like a default width, and based on that, you will manipulate the width with, give me a second, flex basis to 100 pixels. And that will never shrink. No, it will shrink. Let me remind myself what is actually. Flex basis. Probably sets an initial main size. Yeah, this is what I set. On a flex item, it says the size of the content box unless otherwise set with box sizing. Okay. So yeah, this is just initial size. Okay, so this is on the starting point. If you're not doing anything, you're basically setting the width for this element. So what is the difference with width? No difference. Yeah. I think there is no difference. That is why probably I've never used it before. Great, so flex is a combination. So you can have something like 1-1 auto or something. Like flex 1-1-1-0 auto. So you're setting like a grow to 1 and shrink to 0, and auto is basis, so which is basically automate the just weights as it should be, so you're not changing the weights. So align self, this is a funny part that might be useful sometimes. So you have 5 elements, and let me just remove this align for this one. So you have 5 elements, and you can actually align separate elements separately, like each element separately. So for my second, I want to align self center, and for the next one, for the third one, I want to flex end, and let's build something like this. So we have the default one, then center, then flex end, again center, and just a default one, right? And you can move these two to align self center, for example, as well. So you can build any structure with align self if you need, but normally you don't, but sometimes maybe. So this is Flexbox. The only thing that I forgot to tell you is flex direction. Because with flex direction, so we covered like a column and row, but I forgot to tell you about that you can set flex direction to row reverse. So now that will start from the end and go into opposite direction, and the same with column reverse. Column reverse. Again, 3, 2, 1. Very, very easy thing. And here in our slides, we have explanation. So these is like a commonly used names for Flexbox elements. So the flex container is the element that contains flex items, which is your div. And if you set for your div, if you set display flex, it becomes flex container. It's just a title. And your this element children will be flex items. Here I'm just going through that all examples that I've just showed you. And so we have like categorized these properties to flex container properties and flex items properties. So flex container properties, we have flex direction, flex wrap, flex flow, justified content. Here I'm showing all examples and with explanation for each. We have align items, again with explanation for each. We have align content, and we have flex items properties. So we have order, flex grow, flex shrink, flex basis, flex, which is a combination of 3, and align items, align self, sorry. And again, because we are so lucky to have that many games, we have another crazy game, which is to practice your Flexbox skills. So I want to move my frog to that leaf on the left side. So I probably want to do, so here they have explanation like justify content. So yeah, justify content, and they kind of telling you, okay, we have flex start, flex end, center, and it looks like that should be flex end. Voila, my frog saved. And we have, yeah, again, 24 levels. I strongly recommend to complete this game because you'll practice your Flexbox skills and you'll learn a lot. And if you're stuck on any level, feel free to ask for help. Yes, I think this is it for today. The last bit is that I already shared with you the Figma design for this, for the project. Do you have any questions about this page? or maybe about Figma or anything.
Yeah, actually, I just had a quick question, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. My question really was, I know in Figma we get pretty much all of the details, like, the positioning, the fonts, and everything like that. So for next week, on Tuesday, we only have to hand in till 11. Is that correct?
No, both.
So
this one and the
this
one.
one and that one.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I checked. But also in that case, then, so how exactly does it get graded then, as far as because we have all the dimensions and stuff like that. So what do you grade us on exactly?
So I would say we are not looking for like exact match in pixels. So if here you see that I don't know, come on, I can't select it. Yeah, let's put it here. But if it's just covering, oh, sorry, give a second. Block 1, navigation, top, yeah, should be here. Not there, this one. So if it says that it's like 197 pixels, we're not talking about 197 pixels. So we're not looking for exact match in like regarding positioning, but you need to replicate the design, you need to replicate the structure, which is very important. And yeah, I think this is it.
Right. So you're looking more about, and also the tags that we use for HTML,
yes,
things like that.
So basically the goal for this exercise is to give you a chance to build something with HTML and CSS and try to position all these elements and try to move them around the page and understand how it works and how you can create actually layouts with HTML and CSS.
Right. And we're handing in just a Visual Studio Code session with HTML and .html and .css.
This is just HTML and CSS. There is no JavaScript at all.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, and here you might notice that if you click on any element, you will see. Let me just click on this one. You can see the font family, font size, etc. But again, font size, if you put like 48 pixels or like 4 amps or rams or whatever, it doesn't really matter as far as it matches the general design. And the same for assets. For the images, if you click on the image, you can export it. So you can click export and export your image. And here, so yeah, because you don't have experience, you probably don't know, because when I look on this design, I understand that this is default image and this one, but if I hover on it, I will get a text and that will be like shadowed. So if I hover on any, it will be shadowed and have some like kitten text or doggy or puppy or whatever, anything.
Right.
It's just showing you that this is the behavior. And
I see.
So you need to know that, because again, when you will work as a front-end developers, you'll get a design with such things, and you need to understand, oh, okay, so this is like and sometimes we have things like this, and it's not because I want to emphasize home. This is because this is active. So if I hover on this, I will see the same line here, not here, and when I'm hovering, I can see this line.
Right.
And this line, just a hint, you can create with after pseudo element, sorry. Yes, and again, yeah, basically you'll play with all of that.
Brilliant, thank you. So you'll be using more of like yesterday's lesson, not like today's as well, but a lot of yesterday's.
I would say that today's, because it's all about layout, and Flexbox will simplify your life.
Right.
Because with Flexbox, again, to create this is very easy. You create just a margins or paddings left and right, and Flexbox justify content flex end. This is it.
Right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Probably not at the minute.
Okay, yeah. I'm always in Slack. Yeah, great. then thank you for your time today, and next week we will have JavaScript again. So next week we will talk about, let me just open my schedule. We will talk about arrays, objects, about for loops, and yeah, many things, funny things. Yes.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, and I'll deploy. So you have designed for both exercises. This week we don't have any new exercises. We will not deploy anything today. So you already have everything. 2 web pages and these 3, I believe, JavaScript exercises. This is it. And yes, I think, and I will just deploy the link to the our slides from today and code examples.
Did you say JavaScript exercise as well? Actually?